Thank you, everyone. I just want to welcome you to the Detroit Sports Podcast. Thank you for downloading this episode. We greatly appreciate it. Thank you. And if you like the show, tell a friend.
All I want to know if you got your popcorn ready. Do you got your popcorn ready?
That's why these two guys here, these are the men I want as my friends. They're the new blood.
Welcome, everyone, to episode 48 of the Detroit Sports Podcast. Welcome to the Doc and Jock Sports Show. I am the Doc, John Macaroon, and joining me for the 48th consecutive week, my cousin, Adam Strozinski. What's up, cuz?
We've been doing this for a while now.
Did you survive the 4th of July holiday weekend?
I did. I didn't lose an eye or get blown up by a firework, so that's good news.
Cuz, that's a little early for that. Oh, wow.
I'm the tasteless one on this show.
You know, if you listen...
I really feel bad for Rich Luterman. I do. I feel bad for him. And
you didn't even get it right. It's Dave Rexroth.
Oh, I thought it was Rich Luterman.
No, Dave Rexroth. You know, my wife is an avid Channel 7 News watcher. Every night, 11 o'clock, we religiously watch the news. And when we heard the news that Dave Rexroth got into a fireworks accident and lost sight in his left eye and is going to get a prosthetic eye, we were like, really? And this is after a long week of everyone bantering. It's one of those common topics people say is, wow, what is going on with all these fireworks? Me personally, there shouldn't be that many laws that regulate people in terms of things that are entertaining. You know, if you are willing to...
I thought you were the conservative on this group.
I am conservative, but here's the thing. I just wouldn't do it myself. But I don't think the government should legislate fireworks because it's a fun thing to do. A lot of people do it. And why not let Michigan get the $3 or $4 million in revenue instead of Ohio? And people will say, you know what, it's dangerous and things like that. You have to be responsible, just like with gun laws. And so that's what a conservative thinks is that less government, more trust in people, and less laws. And so if you want to regulate everything, then you're going to be sitting in classes and things like that. If you want to do fireworks, then you should be able to take the necessary steps to be safe. That's my thoughts. What was it like in Hamtramck? Were people doing fireworks late in the evenings, or how was it like where you live?
Well, I feel bad for Dave Rexroth. I'm sorry I got him and Rich Luterman confused. My bad. I feel bad for him. I don't know. It wasn't too bad. I really didn't hang around my neighborhood too much this weekend. I had a couple different parties to go to. Friday, I spent most of the day golfing, so by the time the end of the night rolled around, I was pretty toasted from the sun and from all the beer I had drank. I don't know. Saturday, I went to a couple different parties, and Sunday, I went to a couple different parties too, so I was busy. I wasn't really in the hood all that much. So, no, it was pretty good, though. I mean, I guess Hamtramck had their fireworks, and nobody got shot or killed. Normally, I don't like going to, like, big events like that, where, like, the Detroit fireworks downtown, or the Hamtramck fireworks that were going on. I like to stay away from those things, because trouble seems to find me when I go to those types of events. So, trying to avoid, you know, I don't want to get shot again, so we'll just try to avoid all that stuff.
No, I understand. And people are taking the fireworks a little bit too far in terms of doing them a little bit past 10:30. I think that on the 4th of July, maybe the day before and the day after, anywhere between 9 and 10:30 is a good time, an hour and a half. But people are really getting into them, and they are lighting off here in the sub where I live. They were lighting them off, and they were similar to the ones downtown.
Yeah.
Loud explosions, and I was like, wow, man, in 1 year since they changed the law, it's outstanding what people have gotten a hold of and what they're capable of. Me personally, I don't light them off. I just sit back, relax, have a couple cocktails, sit with the family, and watch the fireworks all over town. It's all good.
I usually don't care for fireworks too much. When I was a kid, I had a bad experience, and I got burned real bad by one. So I don't really care for them too much. They're fun, I guess, to just kind of see, but I don't really like getting too close to them. Gotcha. So I learned my lesson as a child. Almost had a hole burned through my foot.
Because stuff happens to you that doesn't happen to many other people. That's kind of interesting.
I told you, man, trouble finds me.
Trouble finds you for sure. Well, we got a lot to get to on this podcast. You ready to get going? Talk about a lot of important issues related to Detroit sports?
Yeah, let's do it.
Yeah, man, we're going to hit on this podcast, we're going to hit on the first half of the Tigers coming off of a great series versus the Dodgers, a contender to win the World Series, swept them. But also, too, we didn't play a great series versus Tampa Bay, and Rick Porcello kind of got shelled again. And in a nationally televised game, didn't put out his best performance. But at the same time, the Tigers have had a successful first half, but other teams around them the sharks in the water are swimming around them. Teams are making moves kind of with the Tigers in mind, and you and I are going to hit on that. We are also going to talk about the Detroit Lions. We're going to hit on some comments, some things that we've read in the newspaper regarding do the Lions have championship DNA? What the offense is going to look like under new offensive coordinator Joe Lombardi. And we're going to get a chance to talk about the Lions. We're going to play a round of Jock Jams. I got great questions lined up for Jock, and he's definitely going to be prepared to give his great sports insight. You ready to kick off another great Detroit sports podcast?
Let's do it, buddy.
All right. All-Star game is next Tuesday. The Tigers potentially could have had 5 players, but they got 3. Max Scherzer, Victor Martinez, and as we all know, Miguel Cabrera. Now, Miguel doesn't want to do the home run derby. Still unsure about Victor Martinez regarding his injury in terms of what his status is for the All-Star game.
Hold on, before you go any further, does that upset you as a fan that he's not going to do the home run derby?
You know what? People have commented, does the home run derby affect your swing? And the one name that kind of people joke about around here was Brandon Inge. He only had 10 swings. I remember that. I was like, oh, Brandon Inge is in the home run derby. And he only had like 10 swings. He barely
had one home run?
One home run, and he was out quickly. But a lot of people do say that there's, maybe a tweak in their swing because you're trying to launch home runs. But if Miguel Cabrera doesn't want to do it, we've seen Prince Fielder in the past. We've seen superstars. I think the home run derby hasn't fallen to like where the NBA dunk contest is, where they're desperate to get attention. I just think that Miguel Cabrera, the number one thing for him is to be healthy. And if he doesn't want to be in the home run hitting contest, that's fine too. I have no problem with that. Because in terms of the first half, overall, I'm pretty satisfied where we're at right now as we speak. Coming off a great 2-game set versus the Dodgers, we took on Zach Greinke. Max Scherzer came out and just put on a great performance. Although the best way to summarize the first half of the season is up and down. We had that great winning streak in the month of May, followed by a horrible month of June. And right now we're kind of playing 500 baseball. The big things we're looking at are the obvious things, the bullpen, and we're kind of looking at what's been going on with JV and what's been going on with Miggy. Miguel Cabrera, while playing well, is productive. His numbers are down from last year, and if you do an in-depth look of his numbers, his on-base percentage and his slugging percentage, his numbers are kind of down, and that's a little bit concerning going forward for the rest of the season, especially combined with the fact that JV has just been up and down with an 8-7 record, and really the offense bailed him out versus the Dodgers. I mean, giving up 5 runs, he's getting tagged, and his fastball still, while he's not cranking it up, his fastball topping out at between 92 and 94 is really concerning. So overall in the first half, I mean, it's been successful. We're still in first place, so that's a great thing, but there are definitely some red marks and some concerns that going forward, if they're not addressed, could see the Tigers falling well short of their goal. So what's your take been so far this first half of the season for the Tigers?
Really impressed with Brad Ausmus. At certain points in the season, he's come under fire either by putting his own foot in his mouth or the team just going on a ridiculous losing streak or losing tons of games. Overall, I think he's done a really good job managing the egos in that locker room, and that's basically what the job of the manager is to make sure everybody's happy in that locker room and make sure they're performing. And this team is doing a very good job performing. I mean, you just said it. They sat there, took on the Dodgers earlier in the year before the season even started. Those were the 2 teams that were picked to play the World Series, and I think most pundits said that the Dodgers were going to win the World Series over the Tigers. So he's done a really good job managing everything that's going on inside that locker room. That's what's been most impressive to me. You're right. The struggles of JV continue, and that's worrisome. Max Scherzer has seemed to kind of pull it around and has got everything going right for him, so that's good. A little bit of cause for concern that they couldn't work out a contract, and you kind of wondered how that was going to play, how that was going to hang over his head moving forward. But I think you found some real gems with guys like JD Martinez. Rajay Davis has been clutch at certain points this year. And Rick Porcello, what else can you really say about Rick Porcello? He's played really, really well. I don't think he's going to get elected to the All-Star game, but
I don't know what you're talking about. That Pick Rick campaign on Twitter, social media, has gotten him, I think, second place, so he's really close.
It's possible, but it closes on Thursday afternoon, so I just don't see him being able to sit there and leapfrog and get to where he's got to be. So he's played really well this year, though. It's been really surprising, and it's been quite pleasant, actually. Like you said, they're not a perfect team. That bullpen has a lot of question marks still, and I expect Dave Dombrowski to address those come the trade deadline. But overall, it's been a very good season. Overall, it's been a very good half season for these Detroit Tigers. So I'm pretty impressed, and hopefully they keep it up for the rest of the regular season.
Now, I spoke and I said earlier, Tigers could have potentially had 5 All-Stars. The 2 obvious snubs that people are talking about are obviously Rick Porcello, and the one that I think is the biggest snub over Rick Porcello, because I think, Rick Porcello, while he does have 11 wins, his ERA, comparable to other starters who get into the All-Star game, is not the best. Now, there are other starters who have higher ERAs that are in, but I just think that right now, Ian Kinsler, with batting over 300, his impact on our offense.
He was my guy. He was the one that I had pegged that was snubbed.
He's the biggest snub. And I think the question I want to ask is, okay, so we agree that maybe Ian Kinsler should have been. My question is this. Do you think Ian Kinsler should be in the All-Star game over Victor Martinez, in your opinion? Because Victor Martinez is a proven hitter, very consistent with numerous home runs. I can't think off the top of my head how many he's got at this point in time. Maybe he's over. You can tell me. You can look it up. But he's clutch. But would you put in Ian Kinsler in the All-Star game over Victor Martinez, who is a DH? Because the American League kind of right now has 2 designated hitters on the squad. So if it was up to you, would you have taken Ian Kinsler or Victor Martinez if you want to drop one?
That's a hard question. That's really tough.
Because I think, obviously Miguel Cabrera, Max Scherzer, they're locks. And it can be you don't want an overabundance of one team. So I think 3 was fair. So the other odd man out would be Victor Martinez. So would you have replaced Kinsler with Victor Martinez?
If you were looking purely by trying to fill out your lineup, so you had basically 2 DHs that were solid hitters, then no, you can't do that. Because Victor Martinez provides you with that home run power, and that's what you need in the DH spot. Ian Kinsler, though, I think he's probably a better second baseman than what's going to the All-Star game. I think he probably deserves it more than the other 2 guys that are going. That being said, Ian Kinsler at certain points in the season has had just great timely hits. You said it yourself, batting over 300. The guy can hit home runs. He has home run power, but he's more lethal when he's on the base path, and I think that's a big deal. I really feel like he kind of got the short end of the stick this time around. I wouldn't necessarily pull Victor Martinez because for the DH spot, you need that home run power, and Victor Martinez is still a guy, even in his advanced age, still kind of strikes a little bit of fear in some of the guys who are up on that mound. I think Victor Martinez is fine. I just really feel like Ian Kinsler kind of got the short end of the stick and kind of got shafted.
No, in my opinion, I think that
Martinez, by the way, has 21 home runs.
21 home runs.
That's quite a bit.
That's unbelievable. He's in a contract year, so he's making a case that he's going to get some cash.
Show me the money.
Definitely pay the man his money. No, but in my opinion, if you're only going to have 3 Tigers, I would have Kinsler over Martinez. Not saying that Martinez doesn't deserve to be there with his numbers. I'm just saying that Ian Kinsler, with his production, with his clutch hits, and just due to the fact that he's obviously one of the leaders now on this team, I don't know why, sometimes just players fall out of favor with their teams, similar to what happened with Prince Fielder here in Detroit. I don't know why, man. I mean, do you remember how clutch he was when Texas was knocking us out in the playoffs?
All the time.
He was a clutch hitter, and I can see why they brought him here. And hopefully, like with the majority of the roster, how he performs in the playoffs is going to be very important. We need his bat.
On top of it, his fielding, I don't want to say exceptional, but he's definitely well above average. He's a very good fielding second baseman, so that helps out a lot too.
How disappointed were you, Sunday night game, marquee matchup, everyone's kind of looking like, hey, it was just announced that Rick Porcello was not in the All-Star team. Goes out there and struggles in that first inning. Like we talked about it, while his performances have been great, I'm just starting to think, is he the product of maybe being a part of a ball club that can produce some runs for him? Now, the performances that he's done well, his slider, his changeup, his mixing speeds is great. But at the same time, when he has those rough innings, it's just killer. And especially when he starts off the game giving up 3 runs to an offensive team like Tampa Bay. It's just killer. You can't have that. Can Rick Porcello become a number 1? because he's got like Greg Maddux type stuff, but he doesn't have overpower. He doesn't have like number 1, number 2 starter type stuff.
I don't think he'll ever be a number 1 or a number 2 guy.
Yeah.
He has good possibility to maybe fill in as a number 3. I think he's a solid 4, and I think he's an even better 5. It's like you said, he has that one inning where he just goes out there and he self-destructs. And I think that's just part of his DNA. It's part of his makeup. It's what you're going to get with him.
It's just disappointing because we needed a great performance. I mean, we just lost 2 games in a row to Tampa Bay. It's a marquee matchup, ESPN, Sunday night, and that's what you give up in the first inning? I mean, come on. And of course, Matt Joyce comes back to haunt us. Your boy, who was
Zobrist?
the guy? Yeah, Zobrist come up with key hits in the first inning to get drive-in runs. Of course, man, that was an awful series, but luckily we rebounded pretty well versus the Dodgers. But cuz going forward in the second half, a lot of pluses for us. We don't make too many road trips to the West Coast in the second half of the season. We got a lot of games versus teams in the Central. In September, we play a lot of teams within our division, so it's going to be an interesting matchup versus the rest of the division to see if we can advance. I think we will. A team out west has obviously looked and said, you know what, we've been eliminated by the Tigers too many times. They pulled a trigger, that being the Oakland Athletics. They made a blockbuster trade earlier this week, and they picked up 2 of the Chicago Cubs' best pitchers in Jason Hamill, I'm trying to butcher this, and Jeff Samardzija.
Good job.
With that said, cuz, Justin Verlander already came out and said, listen, they made this move because of us. They're targeting us.
I think it was obvious they made that move because of them. They had just got swept by the Tigers and looked they just looked underwhelming. So I think it was no doubt it was made because of the Tigers.
Look at this top 4 going into if the Tigers were to face them in a 7-game series. Number 1 pitcher Sonny Gray, number 2 Scott Kazmir, 3 Samardzija, and 4 Hamill. Get out of here with that offense and that defense and that bullpen rounding into shape. Are you concerned at all that the Sharks are in the water trying to go after the Tigers? And
let me give you this top 4. All right, I'm gonna go Anibal. I'm gonna go Verlander. No, actually, I'm going to go Anibal, I'm going to go Scherzer, I'm going to go Verlander, and then I'm going to go Ricky P. I think the Tigers are okay. I think the Tigers are just fine. I think our pitching lineup matches up real well with Oakland's pitching lineup. I don't think we have too much to worry about there. But go ahead.
Yeah.
Continue asking your question.
Yeah,
I think I kind of jumped the gun there.
No problem. I'm saying, does that move concern you? Do you feel like Oakland maybe has now done what it needs to do in order to overtake the Tigers if they were to meet in the playoffs?
No, I don't think so. It doesn't necessarily scare me. I think it's a little bit cause for concern for maybe a guy like David Dombrowski, like, oh, these guys are making moves already. Maybe we should look to see what we have to do. The whole season, the biggest issue with this team has been the bullpen. If you were to sit there and compare their bullpen to our bullpen, I think their bullpen wins hands down over ours. The big concern is the bullpen. I don't really have an issue with their starting pitching. I'm not really worried about their lineup. Not really worried about their guys in the field. Yes, they can win games, and do I think it will be a struggle for the Tigers to get past these guys? I think it'll be a little bit more difficult this time around. I don't think it's going to be a huge deal, though. I think the Tigers will be just fine, and I think if they play in the first round of the playoffs or they play them in the second round of the playoffs, I still see the Tigers advancing past them. I don't think they have enough. I don't know if it's just experience, if it's enough power in that lineup, if the pitching that they have isn't good enough. It's just, there's something about Oakland that doesn't necessarily terrify me. I think the Tigers are okay. I think they're in an okay spot right now. I really think they need to address that bullpen because that bullpen I think is the weak link. That is the basically the gaping wound on this team. They sit there, they shore up that bullpen. I think they'll be okay.
Yeah, because like I said, it will come down to pitching in that playoff series. And I just want you to keep in mind these A's kind of made a shrewd move here, and they put their cards on the table. They've gone all in.
They did. They traded around their first round draft.
I think he was the fourth.
He was top 3 in all of baseball.
Yeah. In terms of the Tigers, with the way they're playing right now, I just think the club can get better. They can play much better baseball. But the way they're playing now,
how good would Nelson Cruz look right now in this batting order? I mean, that guy's killing the ball. He's tearing the leather off of it. The guy, the other day, just had a 5-for-5 day. Nelson Cruz would look phenomenal. And if you ever had to worry about Victor Martinez going down, getting hurt, or if Victor Martinez's bat gets cold, or Miguel Cabrera's bat goes a little bit cold, you got Nelson Cruz right there. I mean, I know there was the whole thing with the PEDs and all the worry about steroids, but that guy is just tearing the cover off the ball. And I think he's getting $8 or $9, maybe $10 million. I think that's a discount for that guy and for the numbers he's putting up in Baltimore right now.
A lot of people have said that Miguel Cabrera's numbers may dip due to the fact that Prince Fielder's not in this lineup giving him protection. But I feel like Victor Martinez has done a good enough job that Miguel Cabrera should be getting some pitches to hit, and his numbers are down. So that's concerning to make me wonder, is he still hurt? Is he, as well as Justin Verlander? Remember, he had off-season surgery to repair an abdominal issue. Both those guys had surgeries. Are they playing less than 100%? Now they won't say that, but it's very concerning that if these injuries aren't healed and these guys aren't performing at their A level in the playoffs, I'm concerned. And so it's something that I'm not going to keep my rose-colored glasses on. I'm going to keep an eye on it. And that if Miguel Cabrera and Justin Verlander aren't at their peak, I don't think even with the performances of Scherzer, Sanchez, and Porcello, if those guys aren't performing, then it's going to make advancing in the playoffs that much more difficult because it's not easy to advance. And right now the goals are so high that we are all hoping that the Tigers are revving on all cylinders come playoff time. The next important thing to look at is now, going forward, who are we going to trade for? I am completely underwhelmed by the fact that rumors are going around that Benoit may return here. Houston Street, we've talked about it. I like Soria from Texas. I like the fact that he's got good stuff, very good numbers, and he can come in and be the 8th inning guy. But let's not poo-poo Jabba Chamberlain. He's come in and done a great job.
He's done a very good job.
A lot of people out there are like, oh, we got Hanrahan. He's coming back. But just look at Jabba's numbers in 2013 versus what they are now. Your first year coming back from Tommy John surgery, you're not expected to do that great compared to your second year. Your second year, if you do the numbers and do the research, your second year back from Tommy John surgery, pitchers do so much better. And just look at Jabba Chamberlain. Coming back from a significant arm injury, he's coming around right now and getting batters out. So I just think that if you pin your hopes on Hanrahan, you may be disappointed.
I think he'll be a nice boost to that bullpen, but let me try to talk you into Benoit.
Through 5 2/3 now. They've got Ortiz, who's never homered against Benoit in his career. Bases loaded. 2 out. Hard hit into right. Back at the wall. Tie game! Big Poppy. The grand slam.
All right, and I'll give you my reasons why you shouldn't be so afraid of Benoit coming back. He got put in a bad spot last year where he had to be the closer for this Tigers team. He went into free agency, said, I want to be paid like a closer. I'm going to be a closer. He was a notorious 8th inning setup guy. The guy was supreme at it. So you bring Benoit in, and if something crazy goes on with Nathan, and we'll just say that the wheels fall off the cart, and he's just a complete dumpster fire for the rest of the year. Now you have Benoit. He's done it before. He can do it again. All right? If not, you've got 2 guys who seem to have great control over the 8th inning with either Jabba or with Benoit. That'll get you over to Nathan. On top of it, you're just adding another missile into that bullpen and just kind of help settle it all down and make it all just run smoothly. I don't think you should be afraid of bringing Benoit back. He had one really bad inning where he sat there and he gave up that huge home run. And yeah, it kind of turned that whole playoff series around. But other than that, if you look at what that guy did for the rest of that season, he did yeoman's work. He did a great job. He got put in a bad spot and he came in and he did a really good job. So I don't think you should be afraid. I think by adding him, it's just another bullet into the chamber of the gun. And now you've got a guy who is experienced, not only with this team, he's experienced with the surroundings at Comerica. He, on top of it, is an experienced 8th inning guy, and he's an experienced closer. So I really feel like you get the best of both worlds with him.
Listen, I've seen that rodeo, and he fell off the bull. The bull tackled him. The bull did his damage. He got carried away, went out to San Diego. Let's keep him out there. It's just unfortunate right now that San Diego is going through what they're going through. They're just trying to unload their talent to try to improve their team. So I've seen that dog and pony show. It was only one pitch, one grand slam, but it turned the whole series around. And so we win Game 2 versus Boston, and we advance to the World Series. I just don't think that I want to see that, and I would be disappointed if that move is made, especially what are you going to give up? What are they going to ask for? Draft picks or a player? Who would you give up for him? I wouldn't give up much, so I'm not happy with that.
I don't know. You got Andy Dirks coming back. I mean, if they're looking for a player right now, You can do something with what you have going on out in your outfield. And whether you give up a guy like an Andy Dirks or even a guy like Rajai Davis, because I'm really not sold that his ceiling is as high as it's been. You can also give up, they do this all the time. They don't ever really have anything super great in their minor league system. And Dave Dombrowski's the master of the trade. He has no problem sitting there pawning off guys in his farm system for proven talent. Done it time and time again. It's how he got Miguel Cabrera. He'll figure something out. The guy's the master of the trade. Let me just give you a little bit of numbers on Benoit. While you're talking, I sat there and I did some looking around here. This season, his ERA is 1.91. The guy's got a .74 whip. That's outstanding. He's got 1 save. He's got 43 strikeouts. The guy's doing a great job on a bad team. I mean, he's not going to get a lot of run support with that San Diego team, and he's out there. He's just he's killing it right now. Why wouldn't you want to bring him back? He's doing a great job right now. And stuff hits the fan with Joey Ballgame. Why not? That's the new Joey Ballgame.
But Joe Nathan changed his arm angle, getting some outs. So
what happens if that gets sloppy?
I just think,
and we're fighting for a World Series.
I'm just hoping that come playoff time, everyone is playing at the top level. And I really believe that that's what they're pacing themselves. They're trying to get through the 162 games, get to the playoffs, and that everyone, including JV and Miggy, needs to be at their top of their game. And hopefully with guys like Torrey Hunter, Austin Jackson, Castellanos, the lineup is tough. And if they're playing at their best, they're going to be definitely a tough out. And so this All-Star break couldn't come at a better time. Everyone gets rested up. Hopefully the guys that go, the Tiger contingent represents themselves well during the game, and they come back injury-free, and we have a great second half of the season.
Real quick, I want to give you some numbers on San Diego because I just sat there and looked at theirs. You realize that they're 30th in the league in runs, 30th in the league in batting average, 30th in the league on on-base percentage, and 30th in the league with slugging percentage.
30th across the board.
They are horrible.
They're consistently horrible.
And Benoit is killing it out there. You should feel good about that if they make that move.
Oh, man. Please. Okay. With that, let's go to break, and when we come back, we're going to play a round of Jock Jams. Stay tuned.
I'm Megan McCormick out here in Fox Sports LA, and when I'm not sitting out in the sun, I'm listening to the Detroit Sports Podcast.
All right, everyone. Thank you for staying tuned to the Detroit Sports Podcast. Thanks, everyone, for your support. We greatly appreciate it. Without it, we couldn't continue to do this podcast. And the way you support us is by going to our website, DetroitSportsPodcast.com, clicking on those banner links. If you're going to do some online shopping, definitely, if you're going to go through Amazon, eBay, or Groupon, click through at DetroitSportsPodcast.com, and Amazon kicks us a little something back if you make a purchase online. Also, thank you to those who have been contributing the $1 a month. Adam and I greatly appreciate it. You're keeping the lights on. You're keeping these microphones hot. You're keeping our podcast on the internet. We greatly appreciate your support. Subscribe to our podcast on iTunes. New shows come out every Thursday, every single week. And with your support, we're going to continue to do these podcasts, and we thank you for it very much. We always want to show our appreciation every single week. Cuz, you ready for another great round of Jock Jams?
Yep, let's do it.
All right, ESPN, wall-to-wall coverage of LeBron. We are learning what ESPN loves LeBron
This
talk.
should be the LeBron channel, 24/7. Just put a camera, follow him around.
My goodness. Well, we've talked a little bit about it regarding LeBron, what the big three should do and things like that. But the team that's kind of come to the forefront in terms of where he might end up, just based on their moves, they made a trade on Wednesday to clear some cap space. The Cleveland Cavaliers got rid of Jarrett Jack. They're clearing some cap space. A lot of people feel, hey, LeBron left on bad terms. He may end up going back there to maybe make amends for the decision, that whole terrible ordeal 4 years ago. My angle on it is this. I want to look at Dan Gilbert. Do you think that he's a hypocrite for considering bringing LeBron James back to Cleveland? Because when he left, basically, it was an awful breakup. I mean, LeBron James courted other teams and basically was a slap in the face to his hometown team, even to the point where a respected billionaire, a guy who's buying up every building in Detroit at some great prices. I wish I can get those prices. He's buying up the majority of downtown. A guy like that, a respected businessman, wrote a letter that stood on the Cleveland Cavaliers website for 4 years saying that I'm going to do my best.
In Comic Sans.
Yeah.
In Comic Sans. Who does that?
Yeah, exactly. Saying that I'm going to do my best to bring a championship here before you, things like that. Not okay. He was emotional. He brought it. He kept it on the website until just recently. Maybe on Monday or Tuesday, he took it down.
Yeah, this week sometime. Yeah.
So, in your opinion, do you think that Dan Gilbert is a hypocrite for courting and wanting to bring back LeBron James?
No, not at all. Your job as an owner of a sports team is to make that the best product possible, to sit there and pack your stadium and fill it with your fans and make it a snake pit. What's the best way to do that than bring the hometown kid back, bring back the prodigal son? LeBron James is the best player in the NBA. I don't think there's any question about that. So why not go out there, why not do everything in your power to get him and team him with your young, talented roster? You realize up until Wednesday afternoon, they had 3 first-round picks going into next draft? I mean, that's crazy. I mean, they just stockpile picks. And you got guys like Andrew Wiggins, you got Kyrie Irving. I'm not sure what you think about Kyrie Irving, but I think Kyrie Irving's a pretty good basketball player. You team those two with LeBron, I think that's a solid lineup. So why not go out there, try to get the best player in the league back on your team? Like I said, bring the prodigal son back home and make that arena a snake pit and make it so angry and so hard for other teams to come in there and win and try to win a championship. That was your whole goal, was to win a championship when you took that team over. So why not sit there and try to get the best player in the league to do that? So I don't think he's a hypocrite for it. I think he's just doing good business.
See, I'm just not sure I want to bring in a guy that's going to be a team jumper.
You're absolutely right about that. But if you pair him with young talent,
who's to say he's not going to leave again?
As that talent
in
grows,
3 years,
as that talent grows, that talent's going to get better and keep that core together and keep that moving forward. He jumped from Cleveland to Miami because it was him and his 2 other buddies. He wanted to play with his 2 other buddies and he wanted to win a championship. He wanted to get the taste of what it was like to win a championship. This sounds really bad. You're making me sit there and stick up for LeBron James, which is hard for me. But he wanted to win a championship, all right? So now you sit there, you bring him back, and you pair him with all this young talent that you're going to have. You're going to have a super young nucleus, and you let him be the captain, you let him be the leader, and help get you to the pinnacle. And maybe you can sustain that for 2, 3, maybe 4 seasons. And I think then at that time, you're going to have to restructure some of those young contracts. He's going to have to restructure his deal. He's already shown that he'll take less money if he's on a good team. He wants a max deal now. In 4 years, I think he takes a pay cut. He comes down a little bit, or maybe he restructures. That way, if Kyrie Irving is now becoming the man, Kyrie Irving will get paid like he should be paid. If Andrew Wiggins is everything Andrew Wiggins has been built up to be, Andrew Wiggins will then get paid what he's supposed to get paid. And as long as they're good and as long as they're winning, the guy's at home. It doesn't matter. Imagine if you were a professional athlete. Say you got shipped out to, we'll say, California. Really nice state. Everything's really great there. It's always sunny in California. And nothing you can say really bad about California besides the people are a little bit weird. All right? Besides all that, though, you have the chance to come back and you get to play in Detroit in front of your family, in front of your friends, people that you grew up with, for a city that you sit there and when you're out there playing, you rep it to the fullest.
You're missing one key point here.
Why wouldn't you?
If I left Detroit and all of a sudden I see my name in a jersey burning and I see everyone flipping out and cursing my name.
They're fans.
And they're just owning me. I wouldn't want to come back.
They're fans. That's the natural reaction fans are going to have.
Burning jerseys?
I think 4 years ago when that happened, I think that really hurt him. He was a much different person then. Now I think he's matured and he understands that that's just the natural fan reaction. That's how fans react. They're like spurned girlfriends. They're going to sit there and throw your clothes all over the front yard when they find out that you were sleeping with their best friend. It's going to happen. That's how it goes down. I think now, though, he realizes that it's all about championships, it's all about getting W's, and it's all about winning. And if Cleveland's going to give him the best chance to win because they have a young nucleus, as opposed to Miami, which is kind of old and busted, I mean, you got Dwayne Wade just always getting wheeled around in a wheelchair. I mean, that guy can't even stand up straight. His knees are so bad. Why wouldn't you go to Cleveland? And if you're Dan Gilbert, why wouldn't you want the best player in the league on your team? Why wouldn't you want to bring him back? I just think it makes good business sense for both these guys if he goes back.
Okay, that's your opinion. I disagree. I just think that I would look more towards guys like Tim Duncan, guys like Manu Ginobili, guys that are team guys and are superstars at the same time. I don't want a guy who wants to sit in front of a camera and announce his decision. Even though it's 4 years later, that's still in him. He still has an ego, and it's just now being shown in a different way. Now he likes that attention.
That's
he likes
fine.
being
You
courted.
cannot root for that guy. I don't like LeBron, and I just spent 10, 15 minutes defending LeBron, so thank you very much. That being said, you don't have to root for him. You can dislike him as much as you want. But if you're the Cleveland Cavaliers, you want to bring this guy in because he's going to sell jerseys. 2, he's going to pack your stadium. 3, all of his merchandise and all the wins and everything good that he does, it just equals ka-ching, 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 ka-ching for Dan Gilbert. And one thing you can say about Dan Gilbert is a smart businessman. A little bit of an emotional guy as he sits there and sends letters out like he was the spurned girlfriend. But he's a very smart businessman. And this makes perfect business sense for both these guys. LeBron gets his max deal, gets to play on a young team. They're going to sit there and try to court other guys to come in and play with LeBron and maybe take a discount to play with LeBron in Cleveland to help facilitate and fill out that lineup. And you sit there and you ride that wave to possibly a championship. Why not?
Moving on. What's going on with Red Wings free agency? Not much has gone on in the last week. Still disappointing and still stings as to what happened last week. But now we kind of turn our attention to who's out there. And the name that everyone's talking about is defenseman Mike Green. Tell the fans out there a little bit about Mike Green and why is he a possible trade target to come here to the Red Wings.
What I know about Mike Green is he's on an expiring deal in Washington. He is a true offensive defenseman. Emphasis on offense. Defensively, I'd probably put him in like the Kyle Quincy category in our own zone.
Ooh.
He's a little bit of a liability back there. However, the guy shows the ability to score goals, and his biggest effect would probably be on our power play. In his last 9-year career, he's had 4 seasons where he's played over 70 games, so health and durability are kind of an issue with the guy. He tends to get hurt a lot and banged up. Looking at some numbers here real quick. In the last 4 seasons, he's kind of been a shell of what he was the previous 3 seasons, scoring just 95 points in about 186 games. Compare that to he had a 205-point outburst in 225 games. I think a change of scenery would be good for this guy. I think he needs to get out of Washington. I think it's kind of hampered him. I think it's hampered his style of play, and it's hampered what he can do. The bonus is he's on that expiring contract, and the change of scenery would probably do him a lot of good. Depending on what you give up, I think he'd be a solid fit here. I think he would help that defense. He would make it better. He's a scoring threat. The guy's an assist machine if he's put in the right spot and given the right chance. He's just a question mark in your own zone. So if you pair him with somebody who's a little bit stronger, I think you'll be okay.
So what's the percentage chance you think the Red Wings get him for the 2014-2015 season?
Everything that I've read and everything that I've kind of followed on Washington wants to get rid of him. They're looking to unload him. So depending on what they're asking for and depending on what the Wings want to give up is kind of that's going to be kind of the bridge that has to be crossed. What do you guys need for him? What do we have that you want that's reasonable for us to give up? So it's a 1-year deal, so I think that makes whatever they're asking for a little bit less. And you know what? I think if he has a really good season, he'd be one of those guys. I think he's like 28, so he's younger. I think he'd be one of those guys, if he has a really good season and everything works out well, I think he'd sign, I think he'd stay, and I think he'd help contribute for the next 4 or 5 years. I know they're not really looking for guys like that because they feel like they have young talent waiting in the wings. I think he'd be one of those guys that you could sit there and you can add and you could build around. Okay. I'd like to give him Kyle Quincy. That'd be great.
Still disappointing in terms of free agency, and we're still feeling the effects. It's still early, but we haven't made too many moves, and it's just really disappointing right now. But hopefully, if this is the guy that they think that can help us, hopefully they can make the right moves to get this guy here, and we'll see what happens. Now, let's give props to the University of Michigan and Michigan State basketball programs. Several of their players drafted in the NBA draft. Gary Harris, Adrian Payne, Nick Stauskas, and Mitch McGarry, all drafted. Now, I think each player got drafted to teams that they have strong potential at being productive and making a way into on their roster pretty quickly. Just in your opinion, of those 4 guys, Harris, Payne, Stauskas, or McGarry, who do you think will have the most impact maybe in his rookie year and who will have a great and productive career of that group?
I think in his rookie season, based on solely the team that he's on, would probably be Mitch McGarry.
Oklahoma's a great a great spot for him.
He's on a much better team than everybody else, and playing around the calibers of a guy like Kevin Durant, he's going to learn, and I think he'll be impactful. Maybe not, you won't see awesome numbers, but I think he'll be impactful in games, which will help translate into wins for Oklahoma. Over the course of his career, I think Nick Stauskas has the best chance, just based purely on the fact that guy is a shooter.
Exactly.
He can shoot the lights out of a gym all day, every day. That being said, I think Gary Harris has potential, and Adrian Payne, I think he's a leader. I think that guy's got the intangibles. But I think Nick Stauskas is the one guy who you can sit there and you can move him around on anybody's team, and I think he'll be successful. It could be a really bad team. It could be a really good team. The guy can shoot the ball, and he can create his own shot. And he's shown in the past that he can dribble and penetrate and then dish the rock, which opens up shots for other guys. I think Nick Stauskas will have the best career out of all these guys.
It just kind of stinks that for us, he's in Sacramento, and people kind of go there to waste away.
That's the worst part.
Sacramento, not the best. But yeah, I was thrilled. I mean, Michigan and Michigan State are going to have tough times replacing these guys. What a draft class, huh? Unbelievable.
Most definitely. I mean, those guys, not instant starters, but I think 3 years down the line, those guys can start for pretty much any team that they play on.
Real quick, you keeping track of KCP out there in the Summer League?
No, not
dropping
at all.
30 points out there.
Yeah, okay. It's the Summer League. No. Obviously you are.
Well, it's making big news. He's like, wow, he's got 30 points. And there was little concern, I think, that KCP was reeling due to the fact that there was so much pressure on him compared to Trey Burke. And he had a really disappointing rookie season.
I don't know how Joe D punted. It doesn't make sense. Oh, my God.
You know, it's really interesting that Joe D made these moves knowing his ass is on the... You really think about it, the more you think about it as time passes...
It was like he wanted to get fired.
Really?
It was like he wanted to get fired. Like he didn't want to be here anymore.
The onus was win now. Why would you take KCP? And okay, it may be KCP 2 or 3 years from now projects to be a very talented player, but you're in a win now mode. You're in a save your ass mode now. I don't get that move in the first round.
At that point in the draft, you didn't have Brendan Jennings. So you needed a guy who could possibly handle the ball and facilitate, yet you're going to take KCP.
That's still baffling. I mean,
it doesn't make sense.
You know, I think it's one of those things where you've been in a job so long that maybe you're just so stubborn that you just don't think that, you know what, he was like, you know what, if I'm going to get fired, I'm going to do things my way.
I think he just hated his life. He doesn't want to do it anymore.
Man.
I don't know.
Yeah.
Sabotage this team.
Maybe one day we'll delve further into what the downfall of Joe D. We've talked
Hopefully
about it so much.
There's an ESPN 30 for 30 on it. That'd be great.
All right, cuz.
The rise and fall of Joe Dumars.
All right. Real quickly before we finish Jock Jams, Germany, Argentina, who you got in the finals?
I really want Argentina. They're going to have a hard time with Germany, though. I mean, Germany just waxed Brazil. Took them to the woodshed and sat there and beat that ass for sure. But I really would like Argentina to win. I'm a Messi fan. I know I was sitting there telling you before we started the show that I think Messi's probably the best player in all of soccer right now. I think he's the most talented guy. I think he's better than Ronaldo, Ribery, Van Persie. I know you're a big English Premier League guy. I think he's better than all those guys. And I think he makes everybody else on that field that much better. And I'm tired of him getting compared to Maradona and them saying he doesn't have a World Cup. He'll never be equal to Maradona. Get him a World Cup and let him show that he's just as good, if not better, than Maradona. So it's going to be hard, though. It's going to be really hard because Germany... You said it last week. They're so talented. They've got so many guys who could basically go and play for every other team in the World Cup and fill out their starting lineup. I mean, the guys that they bring off the bench, they've got like 6 guys who are the equivalent of super subs. It's going to be hard. I think Germany probably wins. I really want Argentina, though.
Must-see game, Sunday, 3 p.m. Tune in. All right, cuz, great edition of Jock Jams. Always bringing the noise. I appreciate it.
Really good questions. Really good questions.
All right, stay tuned. You know, what would a Lions offseason be without some players making some noise about potential? Stay tuned for our thoughts about the Lions
the
and the offseason.
Chatter.
Stay tuned for our thoughts about Lions chitter chatter in this offseason after the break. Just a reminder out there, friends of the podcast, definitely check out and support the Detroit Sports Nation by visiting their website, DetroitSportsNation.com. You can find them on Facebook, They're a great site out there for Detroit sports content. They got great writers. You hear them on our podcast, and we're in collaboration with them. We've enjoyed it thoroughly. We get great debate, great banter back and forth with them. So definitely support those who support us here at the Detroit Sports Podcast. Visit DetroitSportsNation.com. And definitely, if you don't like them on Facebook, give them a like. They got a lot of great content, pre- and post-game coverage of the majority of the games for the Tigers, and they are thorough. That's one thing I can say, is that if you're a sports fan, you're going to get a lot of great content from the Detroit Sports Nation. We greatly appreciate their support, and we want you who listen and download this podcast to support those who support us. We greatly appreciate it. Thank you very much. All right, cuz. Lions off season. Couple interesting stories coming out a little bit. Some preseason rankings, some talk about Matthew Stafford. But the one key thing that came out to me was already some new signings have come out and have started making comments regarding the potential and the DNA of this team. And a couple words that I never thought I would hear together. Championship DNA. Very interesting comments made by James Ihadigbo, new player from Baltimore, comes out in the media. Now, I give him credit. Everybody that comes in here kind of gets that landscape, looks around and goes, wow, there's a lot of talent on this team. There's a lot of talent on this field. You haven't played a game yet, James. You haven't seen what it's like yet for the fans. But, I'll throw it out there. I just don't think right now, the way I look at it is like this. The Lions are a great house that's built. All the brick is nice. The foundation's nice. They're real great. You go inside the house, everything looks good, nice granite top. Everything looks sweet. But they went cheap on the furnace, and when it comes time for the inspection, there's carbon monoxide, and the house can't get approved. So that's what the Lions are. They got a great foundation, but just in certain areas, aka the secondary, they've not done well at. And so the house can't get inspected. The house is not clear. You can't get in the house. Can't do nothing with it. And so with this team, you've got a superb offensive team. You've got enough to sell tickets. You've got enough to keep the fans talking. Championship DNA, that's not in my vocabulary. And I just can be honest. I've been watching too long. I cannot put those two words together, cuz.
I'm going to do you one better. I feel like they're like a 94 Grand Am sitting on 20s with a really loud sound system, but they've got huge rust holes, and they've got a window that won't roll up. That's what they remind me of. Championship DNA? Are we that far removed from an 0-16 season? Have we won more than one playoff game in the last 54 years? Because if we have, I want to know where I was. Why didn't anybody wake me up? This is ridiculous. Why? Every year do we have to start the preseason with all this chitter-chatter about how we're a great team, how we're really good? You don't hear anything coming out about Baltimore, do you? You don't hear anything about New England, do you? You don't hear anything coming from San Francisco or Seattle. But with the Lions, you always have to hear this talk. And it's all it is. It's just talk. Because when the season starts, you never see it on the field. It never translates on the field. It's just talk. There's no need for it. Why do you have to open up your mouth, and why do you have to draw a spotlight to this team? Just go out there, go practice, go home, stay out of trouble.
So how would you answer if someone says, what do you think of the team in your first couple practices if you're a new player?
I think we're okay. We've got to build. I think we're building the right way for the future. So something like that. That's it. You don't have to elaborate. So we've got championship DNA. We know that you don't have championship DNA. You don't. And if you want to argue me that you do, tell me how. Tell me what you got. Tell me what you can pin your hopes on defense. Because that's what wins championships. Defense wins championships. We've got Ndamukong Suh, who can't restructure a deal because he wants to go. So don't count on him being here next year. What, Ziggy Ansah? Yeah, he had a really good rookie year, but what do you got after that? You know what they did in the first round of the draft when they probably should have took a corner? Because they let Chris Houston go? Because they needed to get under the salary cap so they could sign that tight end? They picked up a tight end. That's what they did. They picked up a tight end. They added to their offense. It doesn't make sense. This team is perplexing. There's no need for you to sit there and talk right now. You've got shorts on and you're running around in shorts. Wake me up when you put pads on and you start hitting each other. Everybody looks really good when you got shorts and t-shirts on. Everybody looks really fast when you got shirts and t-shirts on. Put the pads on and then start running around and then come talk to me about championship DNA. Wake me up then when you can see all the faults of this team and how it is so poorly constructed at this point right now. Wake me up then.
Okay. And Another player getting the love right now is Theo Riddick. Now, he was a guy that you talked about as being a potential breakout player during a couple podcasts. You've thrown his name around when Joique Bell and Reggie Bush was missing games in pregame warmups. But they, guys like Reggie Bush, Dan Orlovsky, Joique Bell, they're starting to pump up Theo Riddick, saying that they believe he might be a potential Pro Bowl player this upcoming season. What do you think about that?
Reports are he's down to like 7% body fat. Like, the guy is leaned up. He looks cut. He looks like he's in really good shape. Apparently, they're looking to use him as the Darren Sproles of this team. That's hard to do. Darren Sproles contributes in so many different ways. It's ridiculous, especially for that New Orleans offense. Even when he was in San Diego, Darren Sproles was fun to watch. He was a guy out there who could get the ball and just move it in large chunks down the field because he would just pick up large pieces of yardage as he would play. I don't know what Theo Riddick looks like. And again, he's wearing shorts and t-shirt. Keep it in perspective. I don't want to hear this talk either. I don't want to hear that he's going to be a Pro Bowl player or that he's going to be the second coming of Jesus Christ. Don't talk about it. There's no need to talk about it. All right? Just say, yeah, he looks really good. He's coming along really well. He's progressing well. He's going to be used like our Darren Sproles. Unless that guy's going to sit there and put numbers up like Darren Sproles, I don't want to hear it. I really don't. Because all you're doing is you're sitting there building me up to let me down later on. And this team causes enough heartbreak in my life. I don't need this added onto it. I don't need this to be the whipped cream and the cherry on top. I don't want it. I don't need it. I don't care right now. You have shorts on. Talk to me when you're wearing freaking shoulder pads.
To those new listeners out there, as we have a lot of new subscribers to our podcast, Adam and I are long-standing Lions fans. We've watched a lot of Lions football. So we do get criticized a little bit for being a little too overly critical, but that's what we bring to the table. We've seen the history. We're not drinking the Lions Kool-Aid. We're trying to be as objective as we can. But trying to be objective, not bringing the past. Let's just talk about today. And talking about today makes me feel better because I'm not trying to be angry today. I'm in a calm mood, having some beers, feeling good, had a great dinner. So I'm going to talk about something, some things that are hopeful. Because while we're still in the off season, that's what it's about for Lions fans. It's hope. These guys are hopeful because we have new offensive and defensive coordinators. There's going to be a new system in place. And on the offensive end, we have a coach who was in the New Orleans system and a prolific offense. And in terms of an offense that produces great numbers for running backs, that's pretty good. That bodes well for guys like Joique Bell, Reggie Bush, and Theo Riddick. And the reason why I didn't really look at Theo Riddick's numbers, I just kind of looked at the Saints' stats last year. The Saints, on average, rushed for 92.1 yards a game. Overall, rushing 1,473 yards total for all of the running backs. But Darren Sproles, 604 yards receiving, 2 touchdowns. Pierre Thomas, 513 yards receiving, 3 touchdowns. And then Mark Ingram was sprinkled in there to be the guy that was the change of pace back. But over 1,000 yards receiving for these guys. A lot of screen passes, a lot of sets for their running backs to catch balls. And that's the new era in the NFL. Because guys it's easy to load 8 in the box. It's easy to stack the deck. It's easy to get that push forward. Rushing yards, unless you have an Adrian Peterson, unless you have a Matt Forte, unless you have a running back that's not in the Lions organization, it's going to be tough for the Lions to rush. And so what's predicated on these screen passes is get 3-4 yards, and that's effectively your run. So Reggie Bush last year was a disappointment, but Joique Bell was used in Linehan's offense in a way that was so productive. He got yards.
Do you realize he was the second highest receiver on this team last year?
What the hell is that about?
It was Calvin Johnson, heads and tails. I think he had 1,400 yards. And then it was Joique Bell with 607 receiving yards.
That's amazing.
It was ridiculous.
And he signed a new contract. He's here to stay. He's going to be happy, and I think he's going to be very productive. He's a bright spot. Joique Bell is a bright spot.
I think he's the one guy that they kind of got right on.
Exactly. A guy that is a hometown guy from Wayne State. He's a guy that can get big runs. He's an energy guy. I think he's a good locker room guy. And I think now that if you have Theo Riddick in the mix, then at the same time...
And where did Joique Bell kind of cut his teeth playing?
In New Orleans.
New Orleans? They released him and the Lions picked him up.
And so now that brings us hope. If this kind of production in terms of
the wide. I am drinking the Kool-Aid again. Damn it!
You have to have some kind of hope. Otherwise, you're just going to beat your head on the wall week after week. So while we're in the preseason, I think that I'm going to have hope that Lombardi is going to bring in an offensive system that's going to showcase these guys and actually use their skills. Because Linehan last year, way too pass heavy. You need that balance. You do need to run the ball. But if you can get effective screens, if you can open the game up passing, that opens up the run game. And so with these guys, I'm going to have hope that he is going to be used like Darren Sproles, and he's not going to be a bust. So while I'm confident that the new coaching staff will put these players in the right position, I'm always cautiously optimistic with these Lions. You got to be cautious. You can't invest too much of your energy because they will disappoint you. But while we're in the preseason, I can honestly say that we have the pieces in place. We have a system in place for success. Will that equate to wins on the field? Just judge by the Lions' history, and you'll make your own judgments for yourself.
Let me ask you a question. Do you see this core of running backs more than 2,800 all-purpose yards and more than 18 touchdowns this season?
No. I think no, not more than that. That's what they had last year?
That's approximately what they had last year. It was like 2,830 all-purpose yards.
No, because I think defenses know what it's going to take to shut down the lines. They know that the lines are going to be pass-heavy. Right now, I think defenses are a little bit more advanced than the offenses. And so I think that the way to defend the lines is to be, play a little bit smash mouth. Don't let the cover Calvin Johnson. Let the other guys beat you. Let them get the 3 and 4 yards at a time. But when it comes down to getting the end zone, they keep them out. Limit them to field goals is what most teams do to us. But I just think that Matthew Stafford's going to have a big season, and I think the majority of those passes are going to go to Golden Tate, and the numbers are going to go with Golden Tate, Ebron, and Calvin Johnson. Those got to be your big three. I think Reggie Bush, if he's on the field, has to be that change of pace.
What are you expecting for Eric Ebron?
I'm expecting, for being a first-round pick, I'm expecting 8 to 12 touchdowns.
Really?
He's a first-round pick. Jimmy Graham had Graham had 16 last year, 16 touchdowns. So,
Jimmy Graham's a monster, but you do realize he had 3 touchdowns in the ACC last year.
Well, listen, my expectation, 8 to 12 touchdowns.
The ACC, dude, the ACC.
8 to 12. That's why you brought him. He's got to be in every time. Calvin's going to be covered. Who's going to be open?
What is this team doing?
So you're expecting Golden Tate and Ebron to get all the numbers. Tate and Ebron got to earn those contracts.
I hope you're right.
I am right.
I hope you're right. You know what? I think depending on how they utilize this running back core, and if everything that everybody is building Theo Riddick up to be is actually true, because I do like what Joique Bell brings, and I do like what Reggie Bush brings. I could see them having 3,000 all-purpose yards, and I could see them scoring roughly 20 to 25 touchdowns. I could see that if this offense is going to work the way it's supposed to work, and they have the pieces with this running back core, I think it'll be okay. I think Joique Bell's in a much better situation this time around than he was last year. I think Reggie Bush will start to see a little bit less of the field because he's getting up there in age. Last year he had an issue with the fumbles, but he's still a dual threat out of the back. He's a better receiver than he is an actual running back. I like having, you know what I'd like to see? I'd like to see Joique Bell in there as your number one running back. I like to have Reggie Bush as your change of pace, and I would like Theo Riddick, if everything is true, he is the Darren Sproles of this team. I would like to see that. I think that would work out great. You got a guy who can run it between the tackles. He can sometimes bounce it outside. He has no problem catching the ball with Joique Bell. You got a guy who, if he's as speedy as they're saying he's going to be, and if he's as good of shape as he is, he should have no problem sitting there water bugging down the field, just picking up tons of yardage. And if you have a guy like Reggie Bush, who you're not really sure if he's going to run the ball, if he's going to catch the ball, he can line up wide, he can line up in the slot. I could see them doing good things if this offense works the way it's supposed to work. But there's the apprehension.
But of course, the main concern is this: while our offense is going to play great, can the defense stop anybody?
Yeah. Did we take anything on defense during the draft? No, not really.
Same old, same old.
We cut our best. We cut our best cornerback. We haven't even had a chance to talk about that yet, because this is the first little bit of Lions that we've done this preseason. They cut their best cornerback. You don't have cornerbacks.
But he wasn't on the field enough. He was hurt, and he was giving up some big key plays.
It was all financial, though. That's the worst part.
That's it.
It was all financial. It was so they could sit there and sign their first-round draft pick, Eric Ebron, a tight end. That was why. That's the most frustrating part about this. And you know who holds them in this conundrum of financial questionability? your boy Ndamukong Suh, because he doesn't want to be here. And instead of just being like, I don't want to be here, you got to figure something else out, he sits there and is like, oh, well, I don't have an agent. And now that I do have an agent, we can't really sit there and restructure anything. Sorry, guys.
Yeah, he did. Yeah, and Ndamukong Suh did not help us out in terms of...
Like the most selfish player ever, and he's supposed to be a team captain.
He didn't help us out in terms of cap flexibility, for sure. He could have definitely done more.
Makes no sense.
Renegotiate. We could have got one more talented player in here. But, cuz, we opened the season on Monday Night Football for the world to see versus Eli. Eli Manning is going to have all the time to prepare for the Lions, so coming out of the preseason. So it'll be a great first test, and it'll be a great indicator of where we're at on the defense and on the offense versus a good team. So that's a good test. That's a good test, but I would just wish it wasn't on Monday night for the whole nation.
What happened last time we played Eli, right?
Yeah, for the whole nation to see. I don't want the whole nation to be exposed to us right away and in week 1.
And all we had to do was just win that game to go play in the playoffs.
Great reminder. Great reminder. What are you going to do? With that, I hate to end the podcast on that kind of note. I do believe the Lions are going to be entertaining. Matthew Stafford right now is considered a second-tier quarterback. I'm hoping he uses that as motivation to get himself into that first tier. We need it. Number 1 pick. His feet are going to be held to the fire this season. And if he doesn't produce, we may be having themes of time for a new quarterback. That might be the theme of the 2014 season. We never know.
I feel like you're a Lions apologist.
I'm not an apologist. I'm trying to have a little bit of hope, man. Come on.
Jeez.
You want me to cry about the Lions every week? We could cry about the Lions. We could cry about the Wings. We can cry about the Pistons. We can call this Detroit Crying Podcast. We got to have a little bit of hope.
Only during the Lions season. That's it. That's the only time. That's when we'll change our name.
All right, cuz. This is a great podcast. Man, this went by fast. This was a good time. I had a good time. Great show. Great insight. I enjoyed doing this. And the reason why we love doing this is we would be doing this anyway. We just sit around, have a chat about sports, and thank you for downloading, everyone out there. The numbers have gone up. We really appreciate it. Tell a friend. If you like what you hear, just tell someone. That way we can continue to do these great podcasts every single week. Tell a friend, a family member about the Detroit Sports Podcast. New shows every Thursday. Thank you, cuz. See you guys next week.
Go Tigers. We know that you don't have championship DNA.
Don't you open your mouth about the best, or I'm going to shut it for you real quick.
I told you, they hate to love me, because I love me some me. I love me some me. I can't stand myself.